I'd like to invite the panelists for this session on stage, Professor Anil Kakodkar, former Chairman, Atomic Energy Commission, Professor Ramkrishna Sonde, former Executive Director, NTPC Limited, Professor Prashant Kamat from University of Notre Dame, Dr. Neelima Alam, Associate Head, CEST DST, and I would also like to invite moderators, Professor Vivek and Dr. Nayak, from DAE. I leave the stage to moderators and the panelists now.
Yeah, since Professor Ashish Lele left early, I'd like to invite Professor Andy Hong, who is also expert in green hydrogen. Andy, where are you? We need 2 color mic for the moderator. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first panel discussion, which is on net zero India, nuclear, solar, and CCUS solutions. India has set an ambitious target of achieving net zero emission by 2070, a goal that not only reflects our commitment for addressing climate change, but also opens up opportunity for innovation and collaboration. Achieving this target requires a strategic integration of multiple clean energy solutions, including nuclear energy, solar energy, green hydrogen, CCUS, as well as policies and funding. Each of these technologies bring unique strength and challenges, and these synergy is critical for building sustainable energy future. We are honored to have with us today a distinguished panel of experts who will provide their valuable insights in these transformative solutions. We have Professor Anil Kakodkar. We already recently just heard him. He's a former chairman of Atomic Energy Commission, and he will discuss the role of nuclear energy as a stable, low-carbon power source in India's energy balance and energy landscape. For green hydrogen, we have now Professor Andy Hong, who will talk about green hydrogen as well as storage and transportation. Professor Prashant Kamat from University of Notre Dame will share innovation in solar energy and its integration in India's growing energy demands. We have Professor Ramkrishna Sonde. He is very unique. He worked in DAE, then a former executive chairman in NTPC Limited, and he also worked in industry. So I think, and now he's also working with NITI Aayog. So he is everywhere, and we'll focus on the importance of CCUS technology in industries like steel, cement, and refineries. And even we have a science and technology. I guess we need a government funding and the policy. Known as red tape. So something Dr. Neelima Alam, we are working with her from many months now. She's one of the experts from Department of Science and Technology. She's associate head of the sustainable department in BST, and she will help us to understand the insights into the government funding mechanism and role of a research and technology development achieving net zero. So you must have realized this is a very complex subject. So we really need an expert who can run this and moderate the discussion. And so we have Dr. Arun Kumar Nayak. He is extremely knowledgeable in this field. I have heard him many, many times. And he's the head of the Nuclear Control and Planning Wing in DAE. So all the others have their CVs in the abstract book, but Dr. Nayak's CV is not in the abstract book, so that's why I'm read his CV. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Arun Kumar Nayak, a distinguished expert in nuclear engineering and head of the Nuclear Control and Planning Wing at the Department of Atomic Energy, graduate of NIT Rourkela and NIT Warangal with a PhD from Tokyo Institute of Technology. Dr. Nayak has made a seminal contribution to India's nuclear program, including the design of HWR and innovative SMR reactors, small modular reactors. An internationally recognized authority on advanced reactor systems and nuclear safety, he has authored 9 books, published more than 500 papers, and mentored more than 15 PhD students, earning him a prestigious fellowships and awards, including including the International Academic Engineering Fellowship. So objective of this panel is to dwell into various technologies and energy sources that we all like to use to achieve net zero in India and see their interaction, their collaboration between them. So with that, I like to now request Dr. Nayak to start the discussion.
Thank you, Professor Vivek. First of all, those stalwarts who are sitting here, they have already delivered 3 important plenary talks. 2 I heard in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Very, very important to the theme of this panel. Just to drag it further, to create questions amongst the young brains here, 2047 is a very, very unique year. 100 years of Indian independence. First time, the current government declared India to be a developed India by that time. Otherwise, all these topics were having little relevance. Suppose we don't want to be developed, we can be still, moderated with our own energy system, 10,000 terawatt hour or 10,000 billion units, which can be just produced by renewable, and the game is over. Which is same as America, same as most of the developed nations. They just have to switch over from one to the other. They don't have the issue what India is facing. So we are envisioned to be a developed India. What do you mean by developed India? I just asked the young brains here. 99% people don't know where to fix the developed India. You might have heard Professor Sonde spoke 35,000 terawatt hour per year is developed India's energy demand. Dr. Kakodkar said 28,000 terawatt hour per year is developed India's energy demand. Niti Aayog, I'm a member of the Energy Transition Working Group. They said 20,000 terawatt hour per year is developed India's energy demand. So what is that? It is really a question. Today, our per capita income is $2,500 per person per year in India. The World Bank says if we have to be developed, we need to earn 8 times more. That means $22,000 per person per year. Then the reverse brain will come. Most of the Indian Americans who are settled in America will flow back to India if we have that income bracket. That's point number 1. So to go to that income bracket, which is roughly 8 times, today our GDP is close to $4 trillion. That if you multiply by 8 times, that will also reach $35 trillion, which is closely related. Look at China, look at India. 1.4 billion population both. China consumes, as on today, 40,000 terawatt hour per year. And we are 10,000 terawatt hour per year, 4 times more there. And their GDP is also 4 times that of us. Suppose we grow in the current rate to reach China's level. I don't think we'll reach $35 trillion or not, but we'll emit 4 times more carbon dioxide. That is, today we emit roughly 3 billion tons of CO2. it will be close to 12 billion tons of CO2, which is same as roughly what China emits today. No difference. So here the issue of climate change, we have to grow against the climate event. That's why we said we want to go to net zero. Net zero 2070, I don't know, the world will wait for 2 degrees Celsius temperature rise. In my own estimate, if we go at this rate, in next 20 years, we'll cross 2 degrees Celsius very fast. So once we cross 2 degrees Celsius limit, the ambition to be a developed India, to beat net zero, that will be talked. Maybe most of us may not see 2047. That's why the young brain have to debate today, what is the strategy to reach net zero? Whether we should wait 2070, many of the other nations have already declared 2050. Should we advance it? This is a big question. Second bigger question is, what is the strategy to take India to a developed India with how much energy to support $35 trillion economy? Is it 20,000 terawatt-hour per year, 28,000 terawatt-hour per year, 35,000 terawatt-hour per year? It itself is a big question. I myself was debating hard at Niti Aayog. I'm the other side because the rest all want to compromise to 20,000 terawatt-hour per year because they want to say, okay, solar, we can take 12,000 terawatt-hour per year, rest all this, that. Some 18,000 terawatt-hour per year we can take from renewables. Rest 2,000 we can burn coal because nuclear is uncertain. Why? Even though Dr. Kakodkar said so much about nuclear, if I ask the audience here, they will say, no, we don't know what is nuclear, correct? I will say, I bet it. In India, 99.99% so-called highly intellectuals are not in favor of nuclear. Primarily 3 reasons. Reason number 1, they speak about the cost is too high. Number 2, the waste. Number 3, the radiation phobia, correct? And these 3, unless it is removed from the public mind, no one will favor nuclear. And Dr. Kakodkar said, unless you produce at least 2,500 gigawatt electricity from nuclear, and if I just multiply by that, a very, I'll say moderate cost of 25 crore per megawatt itself will require $6 to $7 trillion investment in nuclear. And today we are just $4 trillion economy. That's what one of the audience said, do you want privatization? Dr. Kakodkar hesitantly said, we need investment, but not their operation. So there is a big question. I've been talking to many public. When the private operators are running every day thousands of aeroplanes with millions of passengers, do they compromise? That okay, 2 engines are not, 1 is not working. Let me reach America with 1 engine. They don't do it. Why? Because once they drive, they're also sensitized. So why we are afraid of a security culture, safety culture, when the key is given to a private operator? This itself is a big question. Same thing, I think there is a book also I wrote, The Unreasoned Fear of Radiation, one of the slide Dr. Kakodkar said. Itself has to be removed from the public mind if we have to take India to a developed status. And most important, this type of academic atmosphere, does it exist in all IITs, IIT Bangalore, NITs? I will say no. 99% academicians want to grow with renewables, not with nuclear. I have been trying hard at each IIT to start a nuclear engineering program. We want to start on energy policy, energy economics, renewable solar, wind, this, that, but not nuclear. Even though India's future will be secured only with nuclear, but no Indian wants nuclear. So this is the biggest problem. So with this background, let us debate hard how we can be developed India with nuclear and also with renewables. So with this, let me go from left to right amongst the speakers, what they feel, how to take India to $35 trillion economy with the energy sources with them. So let me start with my own guru, Dr. Kakodkar sir. Each speaker should not speak 3 to 4 minutes and come to the point, please.
Left to right for the audience, not for the
Speakers.
Yeah, that's good.
Audience is here to come.
Well, 2-3 points. First, the question of how much energy you really require to be a developed country. Now, this transition from a developing country to developed country, this steep vertical line to the horizontal line, that transition is where the HDI moves from 0.7, 0.75, 0.8, 0.85, 9.95. And that is the region which is extremely sensitive to, the additional energy that you would require for an increment in HDI, Human Development Index. So if I want to move from 0.8 to 0.85, I'll find I'll require suddenly much more energy compared to the previous increment. And if I want to move from 0.9 to 0.95, because it's turning horizontal, asymptotic, the additional energy increment required is much larger. And that is where the planners' debate, which Dr. Nayak mentioned, comes in. Because, everybody wants to please the boss. Okay? So nobody wants to say that, no, it is difficult, because that the boss will think you are incapable. On the other hand, you say that I will do it, the boss will think you are capable. Whether you are really capable or not will known at the end of your tenure by the time. So that's the dynamics that prevails when you have that discussion. And these are hard decisions. If I want to compromise in planning, I, for one, would compromise in little higher side. That horizontal line is a long line in terms of. So I can add 10 times more energy after reaching that threshold. My HDI will still remain 0.95. But the economy will improve. So if I have to err, I would actually err on the higher side of the energy consumption than the lower side. So my first point is, people who want to compromise like that are compromising themselves. And I certainly don't want to be among them. This is point number one. Point number two, perceptional problem. And I think that's a real problem. And it's not as if that's a problem only among the uneducated class or the general public in the street. Even among intelligentsia, this problem exists. And I entirely agree with Dr. Nayak on this issue. Question is whether we speak after applying our mind to the extent required, or we are a part of WhatsApp University. And WhatsApp University is good for talking, good pastime. It doesn't solve any problem. Now, important to address this issue, and of course, outreach is, everybody says that's one important way. But these things we learn by experience. Dr. Nayak gave an example of air transport, passenger transport by airlines. And of course, we can learn, one can do. But the fact is, I remember in my childhood, you go to the airport, book a ticket, there used to be an air insurance counter next to it. And everybody I would say more or everybody, you buy a ticket and you buy an additional insurance, although your ticket was insured. Today, those counters are not there. You don't require. So that is the mind change that you require in nuclear, and it will happen. Now, this is not going to happen just by, I think airline industry has learned, and I have heard airline people, there is that maker-checker concept which prevails in the industry. It is so strong that every parameter is verified by a redundant means, not by just an additional person, but by redundant means to make sure that there is no mistake. Now, Indian industry, I'm not saying industry everywhere, but I have moved a lot in industry. And it's a learning curve. Industry is maturing. But as I mentioned, there is a thing called safety culture. Even the corporates, people sitting in the boardroom need to understand that, because most of them they only know mergers and acquisitions. If the power plant is not producing money, they would like to sell it off or lock the door and go home. And that will only aggravate the situation. So that is the learning which industry has to go through. And they will go through, I'm sure they will go through. And we should create conditions for that to happen. I only want to disabuse this notion that leave it in the hands of industry and everything will be solved. That, I think, would be a disastrous path. But otherwise, I think I entirely agree. We need to create. And I think time doesn't permit more.
We'll have one more round.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nayak and Dr. Vivek. Yeah, I come from a background of solar, and there was a time when I started my PhD in BARC. There was the oil crisis, and the first time people started thinking about renewable energy. Already the hydroelectric was there, and literally started from scratch. And one of the field developers, semiconductor photoelectrochemistry, photovoltaics was like $100 a watt. No one imagined that they will be so cheap. Today it is $0.25, 25 cents, or like about 25 rupees, you can say, per watt for installation. So the installation of PV has become not a major hurdle. It is the installation cost and other infrastructure that cost more than the PV panel itself. So having said that, the PV has become very popular. Whenever I used to talk, even until year 2000, if you say solar energy is going to be a grid supply, they used to laugh at your face. Believe me, people have done it. In the conference, like when you give it, it says, dream on. It will never be part of the grid. Today, everything changed. Thanks to China for subsidizing the PV industry, the whole world is benefiting from it. So that is just a one thing to show how things can change rapidly. And we need all sorts of energy. There is not one energy that can solve us. There is no one silver bullet. All this energy we are talking today is essential. I have only one comment is there is so much focus on trying to solve the problem rather than there is a simple solution, reducing the carbon footprint. As I mentioned early in the morning, we used to walk, we used to bike. There were no scooters, there were no taxis. Today, all cities I traveled here in India, it is all auto-driven. Roads are made, roads are broadened, highways are made, but there is no pedestrian walk. There are no bike paths. On the other hand, Europe is changing. So I think we need to think that too.
I don't know where to begin, but I'm a little surprised by this kind of a siloed approach. I mean, I was surprised that I'm a CCUS man sitting here, whereas hardly I work not more than 5 or 10% of my time on CCUS. So please, I think Prashant said it. I don't think we should get divided that he's a RE man, he's a nuclear man, he's a CCUS man, he's a hydrogen man, he's a other man, because we need absolutely everything put together. But this kind of a, the division and looking the problem from here and my solution is better than your solution, I think that is a real problem. I'll tell you, in one of the recent conferences, I was sitting on a panel like this, and I said that, do you really need a CCUS? I mean, I want to put a reductive observer. I know that CCUS may be required, but I ask a question that, do you really need a CCUS? Have you exhausted all the options and say that, okay, because this is not there, therefore CCUS is there? One of my panelists posed on me, hey, what is the solution you have got? I said, nuclear. And he was vehement that, no, nuclear is not a solution. I mean, we agree to disagree on this panel, no question about that. But the fact that, there is a kind of a complete understanding that this is okay and this is not okay, is not okay. You as young scientists, I would like to request you that we as sometimes seniors or supervisors or this thing, try to indoctrinate something on you, that this is the way forward, because that is my subject and I feel that this is the way we have to go forward. My request is that all of us should have the humility to have a skepticism in what we do. Certain amount of doubt, maybe CCUS may be required, maybe nuclear is important, maybe we have got the energy efficiency is far more, important. So I would request that I find that in many dialogues, discourses that I handle, that, oh, he's a CCUS man. We immediately label ourselves as a this or that, and therefore the boundaries are very well set. So my first kind of a request to all of you and to the organizers, that we need everything. If India is to reach those numbers, whatever numbers that we are talking, for the simple reason that I'm not worried about whether number 1, number 4. It is that we need equity in this society. Today, 1.5 billion people, only about, I'm not making a political talk, only about maybe 100 million to 200 million enjoy that higher HDI, I included in that. And there's a large chunk which is very below. So India is not a one number. It's a Gaussian distribution, a very skewed Gaussian distribution. And therefore, we need to bring a lot of equity, and technology can do it, but technology alone cannot do it. You need entire 7 arms of the society to do this particular thing. So that's one statement that I want to make it. Number 2, I think this is important, that we are jumping on to, let's say, okay, hydrogen. And the first thing that I talk about hydrogen is the safety before anything else. But I'm scared that hydrogen transportation from a A point to a B point at such a high pressure, either through a pipeline or a tube trailer, is in a country like ours, as I mentioned in my earlier talk, is going to be enormously safety prone. And therefore, what we call unintended consequences of our action should be very, so today we must spend time on this. 100 years back, when internal combustion engine, steam Rankine cycle were branded as the best humanity has developed, and therefore entire industrial revolution took place, renaissance took place. We are here because of those 2 devices. And now we suddenly realize, oh, these devices are the ones which are cause for CO2, and we cannot put the genie back into the bottle. I don't want that we today take some decision very quickly, hurriedly, and come to some conclusion, and then the policy happens like this, funds go like this. And as my guru, he says, absolutely, I say this in every, we are driven by some vendor saying that this problem will solve India's all problems, and we lap it up as the way to go forward. So my request that these are the forums, these are the conferences, I will go any length to come to these conferences to trigger the young minds here that we need debate, we need discourses, we need conversations, we need respect for others. We can't have the way that is happening in our so-called democratic parliament. It is sometimes become very painful for us to watch. that where is the intellect? Where the so-called Indian 5,000-year-old wisdom has disappeared? Where is that spirituality? So my request, not that I'm going in a meta phase, it's important that we bring all of that, find out what is the best for this nation, because what is this best for the nation, I'm sure will be the best for the world. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to sit here. As you can see, I'm not an Indian, but I'm a yeah, but I'm a global citizen, and I think the challenges in terms of energy security, climate change that my Indian colleagues are facing is not unique to India. It's actually related to everyone. If India cannot decarbonize its energy system, the rest of the world, no matter how hard they work, it is useless. So it has to be a global joint effort. But first of all, I want to make a point that I always want to strengthen, emphasize on in my presentation is that I think net zero is impossible. But what we can do is to achieve the lowest possible carbon footprint, because everything contains carbon footprint. Even as I just mentioned, even if you want to store energy in the form of hydrogen fugitive emission can cause indirect global warming issue. So the best we can do is low carbon, and that's where we should try our best effort. And India as a country has been in the center of my energy analysis of my big picture. Since now we have most of the leaderships here, I think I can also share the point, and maybe some of you can enlighten me with some data. So there is a figure I remember a few years ago that analyzed by World Bank that is about the relationship of the car ownership and then GDP per capita. And so for US, every 1,000 people own around 800 cars. That's about right, because maybe more now, okay? So, and in India, every 1,000 people own around 30 to 50 cars. In China,
But we have thousands of bikes.
yeah, in China, 70 to 90 cars. But it's very interesting that the GDP per capita and car ownership is positively correlated, with a few exceptions. For example, Singapore, Hong Kong, very high GDP, but very few car ownership because car is expensive, because MRT, the public transportation are available. But what I'm saying that is I always ask myself, do Chinese and Indians have the right to achieve a higher living standard? And that is the higher car ownership, higher GDP per capita. And of course, my answer is yes. And I think most of you, the answer will be yes. So have the government make analysis of that scenario, what would be the energy required? And I think the energy needed is probably even more than what we are mentioning today. And the second point is, I agree with all the discussion here so far. I think if we want to really decarbonize our energy system, no matter where, so India, China, even Singapore, Taiwan, I think 30 to 40% nuclear energy is inevitable, because our nuclear energy is probably now the most reliable low carbon sources that can be used as a base energy load. But of course, it also comes with a lot of challenges. A modern nuclear power plant, say 1 gigawatt, will cost $9 billion to build. But the same size of, same power grade of solar farm costs around only $900 million. Of course, this is different. One, you can produce electricity 24 hours a day. The other one, only 8 hours a day. You need 3 of them. You need energy storage systems so that you can provide supply. But I would say solar now is cheaper. And nuclear has its advantage, but of course you have to face the challenges of the public acceptance, because everyone wants clean energy, but no one wants the nuclear power plant, built next to his or her home. But having said that, I think from government side, the government need to have a policy that we have to deploy both quick enough. Solar farms, nuclear plants take time to build and take time to source the building materials to build it. So I guess this is the comment also to raise the challenges to our future generation. And us as the older generation, I think we need to try our best to be able to provide a perspective from all possible angles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm from Department of Science and Technology, and I'm not at all bracketed in any aspect of energy. As far as DST is concerned, this particular division of DST, Climate, Energy and Sustainable Technologies, we are looking at curtailing emission curtailing technologies, right from, of course, green hydrogen is one of the major focus. Carbon capture utilization is also a focus. Solar has been a long kind of a standing focus of this group. We are also looking at sustainability related technologies like water technologies, climate, not just climate mitigation, climate adaptation. We're looking at heating, cooling technologies, building energy efficiency technology. So the whole basket, except of course nuclear, most of the other aspects are part of this activities of this division. Having said that, since I'm more deeply involved in decarbonization aspects of this group, specifically CCUS, hydrogen also something which I'm involved in. I can say that, our focus has been, if to begin with, of course, it's the breakthrough R&D, fundamental R&D, that is one of the focuses that we are looking at to fund and finance throughout the country. And also we are trying to take these technologies which are lab proven, lab developed technologies, somewhere between 2 to 3 TR levels, and take them to 4 to 6, which is usually the valley of death that we refer to them as. We try to handhold these technologies for translational R&D. We have done efforts, especially in hydrogen and carbon capture utilization, more recent efforts which I can outline. There has been talks since morning, and they have been referred. The Hydrogen Valley, which is still not kind of established and supported from DST's end, but that is in the efforts. That was one of the translational R&D effort of DST, where industry and academia and research consortia were built together. Funding coming basically more majorly from the government side, but also coming from the state governments or from the industries involved. And a seamless kind of a valley kind of a concept was attempted to be developed for taking the hydrogen technologies across the value chain, from R&D to translational R&D to upgradation to, integration. And that was the whole concept of hydrogen valleys, which are still in progress, I would say. For CCUS, we have been very deeply into fundamental R&D. We have been part of many multilateral and bilateral engagements. Mission Innovation was the beginning of our CCUS journey, I would say. We went on to be part of another multilateral platform, Accelerating CCUS Technologies, EU-funded program, and Clean Energy Transition Partnership. It's been quite a, I would say, rewarding experience, since it was a nascent technology in the national scenario at that time when we started. We were I would not hesitate to say that DST was the pioneering in R&D for CCUS, if I can say that. Actually, it's a fact. In 2018, there was hardly any R&D or any work going on CCUS. When DST decided to pick up CCUS as a major focus, and breakthrough R&D was supported through the Mission Innovation Collaborative Project, which were more or less national project because there was no funding coming from the international side. Funding was all national, but there was knowledge sharing with the collaborators. So each project had MI country partners in the projects. Accelerating CCUS had a different model. We had funding coming from both the sides, Indian side and the other side. And there were 5-6 countries on each ACT project. Very interesting collaborations were established under the ACT umbrella. I mean, on basalt, rock sequestration, permanent sequestration in basalt, permanent sequestration and its assessments and risk assessments in saline aquifers. There was also some very interesting work going on in ISC Bangalore for application of CO2 sequestration in concrete using 3D printing technology. That's a very interesting project going on there. There's work on amine capture plants and study their impacts and their safety and their regulations and their impacts on the environment. So these are the kind of projects. In the national scenario, I'm very happy to share with all of you that DST realized that we had leads in the form of technologies at the national level, and we felt that these technologies have to be now taken forward. We established 3 fulcrums, you can say, or networking hubs at the national level in 3 different points. One at IIT Bombay in this city, Dr. Vikram Vishal is coordinating. The other one at JNCR Bangalore, Dr. Sebastian Peter, that is more focused on utilization. This one is, the Bombay one is looking at the whole chain, CCUS. Another one established at Neeri Nagpur, CSIR Neeri Nagpur, which is again looking at biosequestration and CCUS aspects from the bio end. So these were the 3 fulcrums or networks. And I must say that we were very happy to say that these actually turned out to be exactly working the way they were visualized. They are interacting with industry. They're also leveraging global linkages and bringing the global collaborations. They are bringing out technologies. They have both come out with their own startups, emerged from these 2 COEs. Urja Nova C at IIT Bombay and Beat India Limited at JNCR Bangalore. That the activities have resulted into commercialization of their technologies. And by these technologies that developed at IIT Delhi, also by some of our experts, our efforts at IICT Hyderabad, CSIR, and we decided that, okay, now this is the time to take these technologies to the next TRL levels. They were somewhere around 3 or something like that.
So, we will go into the more
Okay.
details in the second round.
Sure,
right?
sure.
We can conclude.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say was that translational R&D was our next step. And we tried and we devised very innovative mechanisms with industry. So public and private partnership, and take these technologies to the industries, set them up at TRL level from 4 to 6 in the relevant industrial environment and try to validate these technologies. We've already supported some translation R&D projects, but as you said, I've taken time, so I can come next. Yeah.
So a quick second round will take, and the second round theme will be, we have different types of industries. We have the transport industry, we have the captive power plants, we have the manufacturing industries, and now the AI, as well as ML, this new industry, software industries, plus domestic construction. So many different types of industries will require energy. And as you have been hearing here, 2 important aspects, let me put it here. Today, our population is 1.4 billion. By mid of the century, expected 1.7 billion. So we have to plan for 1.7 billion before it reduces. At the same time, if you see, 80% Indians are trying to catch a flight. It's honest. Whereas in America, probably 80-90% people go by flight. In India, 2050, the big city Bharat would envisage a lot of people are going by flight. A lot of people will be having automobiles. I don't know how many cars each family will have. So the transport demand, energy demand will be huge. Now look at the captive power consumption. Last 10 years, India's captive power consumption had climbed from 40 to 80 gigawatt of electricity. 2050 is expected to grow by 8 times. So 500 to 600 gigawatt is required only from the captive power plants. So captive power plants, then we have the transport industries, other industries, they will be requiring different forms of energy. Some base load, some will be like distributed sources. So what the panelists feel for each of these industries? For example, can we use renewables for captive power plants? It's when I talked to the chairman of Central Electricity Authority, he says, if I remove a coal-based power plant, my only option is to replace by nuclear. There is no need of putting a solar plant there. It's impossible. Morning also you have heard, we keep 15% of the world population in 2% of the world land. Getting land to put renewable is very, very tough to get the right amount of energy demand. Second, nuclear, also putting a conventional nuclear power plant will require huge land because of the exclusion zone requirement, emergency planning zone requirement, seismic requirement, water requirement. This itself is also another major question for India. So challenges are plenty. What the panelists answer? Let's hear before we open to the public.
Yes. And
Kakodkar sir, please.
Yeah. Maybe I can also add in one more question to each of them so that we can be more specific. So I will be a bit of a devil's advocate and try to ask direct questions so that we can have a better discussion. So I have some data. This is question for Professor Kakodkar. So currently the cumulative energy demand is around 453 gigawatt per year. And the projection is by 2070, we need around 708 gigawatt per year. And the current nuclear energy contribution is around 8.18 gigawatt. So it looks like a huge difference in what we need and what we have, right? And we already more than 50 years now in this area. So how realistic it is that Andy said we need a 30 to 40% of contribution coming from nuclear energy. Right now it looks like 1% or less than that. Pardon? Yeah, suggestion. Yeah. So it's
No.
8.1.
Yeah,
One
what
point.
he's saying is right. See, the issue is, well, first of all, your observation is dead right. But the reason for that is we should examine our own systems. See, there was when high temperature superconductivity got invented, I remember Government of India at that time gave a massive grant for research in high temperature superconductivity, right?
Yeah.
And I think India probably contributed a significant quantum to the global scientific literature and of high quality literature. How much we have contributed to technology of superconductivity is a question. And I can repeat that in many. Talking about nuclear, there are many technologies, even in energy, where if we say that we want to do it here without any foreign collaboration, how many of them we can do here and how many will still need to depend on outsider, I think is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
The point I'm making is that I think in terms of delivery, we talk a lot and do little, right? And that has to change.
Yeah.
So the answer to your point is we should all be doers than, speakers. And I hope Indians work best when they are in crisis.
True.
And we're very close to a crisis as far as energy is concerned. So
Yeah.
it's not a good way of looking at a problem, but I think that's the reality.
Yeah.
Now, talking more broadly, let me observe the following. In terms of larger S&T implementation, if you see our science, technology, innovation indicators, I think it's a very steep ascending curve. India has done extremely well, particularly in last maybe a decade or 2 decades, in terms of, in terms of publications, in terms of patents, we're doing extremely well. Science funding has gone up. But then, good part of that is good for TRL 1, 2, 3. Now, translation of that to higher level of TRLs, and now I'm talking about, so there are industries, there are high capital cost, long gestation period industries, which you require massive organizations to drive them. And there are other industries which are kind of short capital cost and short gestation period. And that, I think, the startup culture in the country is shaping up quite well. And I'm sure the startup culture will drive that part. And I dare say, in spite of the government. Right? So we should not get confused between the two sides. The other thing will happen. Energy, unfortunately, solar may be exception, but energy, unfortunately, belongs to the other side. And you require, for example, in this managing the translation chain, you require, let's say, the kind of handholding between public and private are of two different kinds. When you are at the low TRLs, is of one kind. When you go to very high TRLs, is of quite another kind. Just to give you an example, in nuclear energy, whether based on fossil or refinery or whatever power plant, any of these of this category, you have proven a concept. Laboratory work fine, understanding fine. Right? Now, demonstration plant, if you're talking about, let's say, we're talking about 1,000 megawatt plant, nobody would trust you if you say that I have built a kilowatt scale demonstration. They will not allow you to escape because financial risks are high. So they'll say, you show me a demonstration at maybe a few hundred megawatt scale or a refinery which is of that. Now that will involve investment of the order of several thousand crores. I think we don't have a mechanism in the country where we talk about viability gap funding and all, but a mechanism where, because you run a power plant and let's say it is not viable at that level. So the output cannot be sold in the market unless it is subsidized. And you can't be running such facility for 6 months or 1 year because it will be in huge loss. Now you want to take these technologies to the right level. You have to have a mechanism for doing that, which I won't say it does not exist, but it is very, very weak. So this is one weakness in the translation chain that I think we must recognize. Secondly, there is an issue about when we put policies, technology policies, we write it down in such a fine manner, rigid manner, that For example, you want to achieve, take the case of green hydrogen. The definition of green hydrogen is hydrogen produced from renewable energy. All right? Now you can produce hydrogen using nuclear energy where the carbon footprint could be in fact smaller than some of the renewable energy. But it will still not be qualified for green energy. Or for that matter, we have this bioenergy. Now we have PM Jivana Yojana. But that essentially drives only 2G ethanol produced through a particular route. Now, I think biomass can be used for producing energy, and whichever way you produce, why you have to produce ethanol only? Why not other alternatives? So the point I'm making is this policy should be written in technology agnostic manner. Our purpose is to leverage biomass, produce energy out of that biomass, and let the best technology survive. Why do you prescribe a technology? So I think in prescribing policy also, we need to be careful. Since you represent the DST, nothing, but I was involved in an Indo-American program on serious solar energy. It was a nice program, industry and university on Indian side, industry and university on the American side. And it did some good outcome. That program was very good. But the program, it had a specified period, it was over. The question was, even after involving industry, why does that not continue? Because there is no internalization. There is no domestic program to continue forward. So nothing has happened after serious program. So when you're talking about this technology translation change, I think we need to think through more holistically. I can go on several examples, but that's the point I'm making is we need to do more holistic thinking. And at present, I'm afraid our thinking is more compartmental. So that has to change. Well, I think I can go on, but I leave it.
Yes. So thank you, Professor Kakodkar. I think we all agree with what you said. So now I will have a similar question for Prashant. So India's current solar energy capacity is around 91 gigawatt. So out of 453, and we need 70 to 8. Maybe these numbers will not be the same. Now this energy harvesting, so most of the solar panels and batteries, almost everything, I guess, comes from China, right? We really don't still have any solar panels. There are some claims, but overall nothing. So then how do we really see the role of a solar energy in achieving net zero? It's like another form of a petrol coming from China now rather than coming from Middle East.
Yeah, that's a good question. It is not only here, it's also for the US and the world. And in fact, the thing that brought down the price was because they built the plant to make silicon. Making silicon is almost like another nuclear industry.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take the sand, melt it at 2500 degrees with the carbon arc, reduce with carbon, making melt, then purify, clean rooms, all these things, if you consider, there is a huge cost. And that was the reason why it was high. But the Chinese government put this factories and says, okay, now you start selling it. So the advantage of that one was entire world got cheaper thing. So you can start doing the same thing. And the question is, why the other countries haven't done it? Like in the US, there are companies like Solendra was there. They just folded because they couldn't compete with those pricing. So at one end, it made a good thing, but it also undermined the technological development here on this one. So this is true for all the energies, whether it's nuclear, renewables, or anything. They do inherit carbon footprint. For example, silicon solar cells, first 3 years, they are payback carbon. The first 3 years electricity produced is equivalent to the energy that is required to produce the solar cells. Nuclear is close to somewhere between 5 to 10 years. Those numbers are not disclosed because think about the uranium ore. It is only a couple of percentage. You have to extract it. You have to enrich it. All these things includes it. Take any other sectors, hydrogen or CC. So we are using that energy and everybody says, oh, we'll be using renewable energy to produce hydrogen, making ammonia or whatever it is. But that is not the capacity, right? So my again think is, let's focus on what we can do without, we can lower the energy consumption. We can increase the efficiency of things that we use. We can go back to our old habits of walking, biking, right? We are spending, I don't know how many billions of dollars to make highways. Why can't we have some decent footwalks so that I can walk to the market? So that good thing has lost in the cities. Highways have divided my village. I cannot cross the other side. So these are some of the things the people who plan this development also take into consideration how it affects this one. So again, I'm a little deviating from your question, is by decreasing the energy demand that we use, there is a lot of room to fill that gap. So we should not be just thinking in terms of, okay, our energy demand is increasing and how can we make it? Yes, it is increasing, but can you lower that slope by finding alternate ways? So that's all.
Yeah. So you're suggesting a societal changes in our lifestyle, right? What we were, yeah.
You cannot just say that we have to go for, yes, we need
both,
a higher
right?
index
Yeah.
for living.
Yeah.
But we can do the same thing without using less energy.
Energy. Agree.
Correct.
Yeah.
I just want to, I can't help commenting on this. I think this point is absolutely right. There is no justification or scope for wasteful energy use. But let's look at somebody in the United States, right? And somebody in India. And let us say that we are all creatures of this world. So we have all the good qualities and also bad qualities. So everybody wants to be like others. So aspirations, it doesn't cost you to have high aspirations. My aspirations are high. Now imagine an individual in US and say that you would cut down so much of energy use from your daily energy use. What will happen to that individual? I think individual's quality of life would in fact improve at the level at which there is consumption. In India, the average consumption itself is so low. And as Sonde observed, half the energy may be only consumed by 10% or even lesser people. So they are consuming energy like those in the United States. But the larger part, now if you say that if you make same level of reduction in India, you'll find a large number of Indian people, for them the survival itself may become difficult. So all I'm trying to say is while reduction in energy use is important, I think we can tell this to those who are beyond a particular threshold.
Yeah.
But telling this to those who are at the survival level, I think it doesn't carry conviction according to me. So this is one part. And the overall planning, energy saving, many people say is equivalent to energy production. Absolutely right. But as part of national planning, engagement with people, I fully agree. But as a part of national planning, if I had to plan, in India, if I plan on that basis, it would become a disaster as a nation. That's what I feel.
No, I was pointing out to the cities. I didn't point out to the rural areas. Cities today, you cannot just walk on any street. Why?
50% of India is village.
That is there, but here I can use, take Amsterdam, for example. They cut down the 4-lane highways into 2-lane highways so that other 2 bikes, everyone goes to work with a bike.
That I fully agree.
Right.
I'm not
So what I'm saying is create bike paths along with your automobile path. So increase the efficiency. That's what I'm saying is there are rooms to do it. I'm not saying in the rural area they need to come up to, I'm not saying that. I'm talking about cities where we are wasting more energy than any other cities in the world.
Yeah.
No. Only one correction we can do, sir, that, a colder countries, we can understand that maybe the energy consumption is a little more required because of the comfort that's required to maintain when minus 10 degrees centigrade is there, like now it is happening. Maybe a tropical country, we are a little kind of safe, but we need cooling. Cooling is also very important, and Delhi requires a high cooling energy. So while he showed that particular curve, these countries have to come here, whereas these countries are going together. So if you can come to that magic number, and globally, I don't think it'll happen. It's in my utopian thinking that whether they can come to a number where these people will come down and this will go, and we'll have one nice, good-looking world.
Okay, nice.
There is no consensus on vacating carbon space.
No. That'll never happen, sir. That'll never. Yeah.
Take the mic if you want.
Yeah.
No, to him, the mic.
It's done. I think
So
next year.
we now focus on CCUS. I personally believe that at least the CO2 conversion is the solution. But you mentioned something in your plenary that it's already 50 years. We have put in lots of money, although I never seen that lots of money. But let us assume that globally, okay, not in India. So, and you say there is nothing, right? There are no technologies yet. There is no commercial technologies yet, and that means something is wrong. True, there is no technologies yet, but that doesn't mean that there will be no technologies coming in, right? Look at the Haber-Bosch. Until Haber-Bosch, no one thought that you can ideally really convert nitrogen into ammonia, and ammonia gives you all the fertilizers. But one breakthrough changed everything. So why are we ignoring that part, that there will be something like this in the case of a CO2, and you will have a process. Right now, the processes needs higher energy, higher pressure, higher temperature, and that's why they are not sustainable. But is it a good idea to completely say that CCU will never work? It's the same for R&D, I guess.
No, Vivek. I think what I said in 1918, when Haber-Bosch got 2 Nobel Prizes, they had time on their particular thing. In fact, Haber-Bosch, I'm alive because of Haber-Bosch. Otherwise, there is a thing that the world population would have stunted to about 3 billion people if there was no ammonia. So Haber-Bosch has been, there's a great thing that was happened, but it happened because of some compulsions, and we know the history of how ammonia was synthesized. Today, it took a long time to do that, and took about 40, 50 years to get into urea. Today, if you follow the same track, Vivek, we better don't do it. Because we are on a ticking bomb. We are seeing the impact of these extreme events. And maybe we are like a frog which the water is getting heated and we are really not feeling the heat. And you know what happens to that frog if it continues and the water starts boiling. Exactly that is happening. And therefore, my request to you is that don't compare, therefore, something happened 100 years back, and therefore I've got a successful model. I would like to cut and paste that model here. No way. As I said, these are all very important. Let's discuss, debate, and once you decide these things, you don't agree with me, but it's good that we have the differences. We have to do it in months and not years. I took so much time to make during my heavy water programs. I did that time. But today in a hockey stick curve that we are here, we simply don't have a luxury of time. So that's one thing. But coming to Arun, your question, I think, see how we miss the bus. You talk about a coal plant, and can you replace by a coal plant with any renewable plant? Just replace the boiler with a solar thermal would have done an enormous amount of benefit to this country. I know how I and he were talking about simple glass technology, reflective glass. India was #1. Again, I go back to, I don't want to do this. good in glass manufacturing. We abandoned glass manufacturing. And now we are going for a silicon manufacturing. Had we only continued with our thin glass making and the bending of the glass, coating of the glass, today India would be one of the leader in solar thermal. What do you have to do? Just replace the CO2 boiler with a solar boiler. Back end, everything is available. You can even store it without even lithium-ion batteries. Am I talking any hypothetical thing or a fictitious thing? I'm talking, this is exactly, and I know the pain that I've gone. I was saying that India needs heliostats, India needs parabolic troughs, India needs spherical. I mean, this is something which now people are saying, oh, this is what India should have done. Why we did not do it? These are all very, very costly hits and misses. I still feel that these are extremely important. We need to bring them straight back into the system. Just to answer your question as to when you're talking about this, how do we really develop the captive power plant in a renewable? It is not remove everything and put PV. Wherever PV, you can do it on the rooftop, you can do it in the buildings, but bring the solar thermal. Solar thermal today, you can go up to easily 800 degrees centigrade. Even you can split water. You can generate power. You can have heating. You can have cooling. It is such a, and you can store the energy at maybe $30 a kilowatt hour. Whereas a lithium ion with lithium, cobalt, and whatever that you want to do in NMC requires almost about $80. And we don't have those nickel. We don't have that cobalt. We don't have lithium. We don't have graphites. So I think somehow we got into some narration, not generated here because they feel that our intellect is not good enough. And that is what is creating a problem. That's the only worry that I've got. That there's a beautiful set of intellect that's available, but somehow we are not able to work together to bring and exert pressure on the policymakers because we are not united in our scientific thought and come to that discussions. Now, coming to this CO2 removal, which industry? My feeling here is, that's the second question moderator asked, is look at this. I think all of you understand scope 1 emissions. What you have to just target for tough to decarbonize industries like steel, cement, aluminum, fertilizer, power plants, is just target scope 1. Aluminum, because you've got an anode which is carbon, consumes Al2O3 and you get CO2. The cement, CaCO3 gives you CO. So this inevitable CO2 generation is something which you have to handle. The scope 2 and scope 3, and I don't think I have to give a lecture on that, can be handled later on. So today CBAM, which is one of the biggest barrier, which is going to stare at us in next 2 years' time, because EU is not going to take 1 kg of metal produced, and that's why Dr. Arun's question is, what is that we need to do? All industries are concerned about it. How do we manage it? I tell them just manage the scope 1 emissions. And scope 1 emissions requires a very different level technology than the technologies that we are talking about in the other one. So what are those? Change the electrode. Get into inert electrode. Get into blast furnace where you can use hydrogen rather than using the coke. So these are all very, very interesting fundamental developments that is required in our industries to decarbonize, and it's going to happen. And that is the way that we should go. Scope 2 can be either replaced by renewable energy or nuclear energy or coal with a CCUS. Those options are easy. Scope 3, really, I don't know. That requires a very different discussion. So that is the questions that I thought I should answer. That solar thermal, my dear, is something which we need to really bring it back. If I had some magic wand that I can change everything in the last 10 years, I would do that for this country.
I just want to comment. You just said hydrogen is not valid earlier. Now you say you have to use hydrogen in the furnace.
Did I say hydrogen is not?
It's very dangerous. You cannot have it.
No. I'm just saying, yeah, that's important. So I say hydrogen is like a god. Don't carry hydrogen as a virgin hydrogen. See, please, Prashant, I think don't put words in my mouth. No. I just want to make it very clear. I say hydrogen is required. No. These are, because no, they will say that, no, I'm taking something. Hydrogen is important. Hydrogen is like a god, but don't look at us, where is hydrogen? Get into ammonia, get into LOHC, get into methanol, get into anything, metal hydride, and generate it at the point of generation. So don't do it. That's the lazy guy.
Okay.
No. Understood.
Professor Kakodkar wants to say something. And
No,
then-
no, I just want to add a little spice to what Dr. Sonde was saying.
Please, sir.
I think, again, I gave example of high temperature superconductivity. I think solar thermal is again the same thing. I happen to be the first chairman of Solar Energy Corporation of this country. Okay. And when this question came about inviting bids for solar plants, it was on the table that we should give equal importance to solar thermal and photovoltaic. But the government way of working is all right, but then let us invite bids and whatever is cheaper we'll go through. And I knew that the game is lost slight there, because on one case we are talking about building plants on factory produced items. Other case we are talking about building plants where much larger customization effort is involved. Although solar thermal, 100% value addition could be within the country, whereas you talked about China and other things. The point is, and then of course photovoltaic, then solar prices came down, big bandwagon came down all the way up to 2 rupees some paise. And then people started worrying about what is the cost of integration of this large variable renewable energy plants into grid. And then the new round of bids started. That solar and wind with 6 hours or 8 hours of storage, either battery or pump storage. And the 2 rupees magic went up to 7 rupees, which is much more expensive than nuclear. And the whole narrative in this country, or for that matter, many other countries, was solar is cheaper. Now, so all I'm trying to say is these narratives can be tweaked and manipulated, and this is what vendors are much better than us. But we don't have to fall for such narrative. We need to have more holistic thinking, which I find many times lacking. So I thought I'll just make that.
Yeah, thank you. Prashant, you want to say? No.
One of the things, this Buckminster Fuller, he had, long time back, he had it, to create a global grid. Okay. We have, and it looked impossible. We have a communication grid that is global, right? We can reach any part of the world because of this. So if all countries can come together and create a global electric grid, then if it is day here, night somewhere, right? If night here, day somewhere. If it is rainy, sunny somewhere. So we can think about much broader way. We can bring all the energy mix. So that may be one of the solutions for your first question you asked.
No, it is not a solution, sorry. Okay, because you are saying, is it a solution? Because energy security is a game. It is a worldwide control game. Please understand, nobody will give you solar electricity at a cost which is produced here.
The same
is
thing
the
was there
question.
for communication too. Communication was also a security. It was very much compartmentalized.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So now we have a comment from Andy and
yes,
Neelima ji, and
yes.
then we
Since-
open it
yes.
for the
Since Vivek, thank you for pointing me for the comment about CCUS. I never say CCUS is useless. Okay. So CCUS is very important. If you don't carbon capture, you cannot utilize. And CCU, carbon utilization, CO2 utilization is very important for business. I say it is useless for climate change. Why? Because For carbon utilization, we have two parts. One is converting CO2 to fuel, and for that part, there's no CO2 reduction. So what we are talking about is efficiency, how to use CO2 as an energy carrier. So that's a different topic. The other part that we can fix carbon, that is carbon utilization.
But just to interject, why you are saying that there is no reduction of the CO2 when you convert CO2 to fuel?
Right.
Because once you convert...
Right. Because once you use fuel, you release the CO2 back
I
again.
have the numbers I can.
Right. You reduce CO2 back again. Right.
Yeah, but you are already closing the input fossil fuel. If I'm converting the CO2 to fuel, I don't need a fossil fuel. So you're automatically reducing the overall CO2.
No, that is CO2. That is CO2 for as an energy carrier. That is not CO2 utilization itself. That is using CO2. So the CO2 function is like battery.
It is. CO2
Yes.
is not energy. It's
No,
always the solar
that
energy.
is like battery. So for battery, what we are talking about would be efficiency. If one way, they say we convert CO2 to fuel A, the overall life cycle efficiency is 5%. And then there's another way to convert CO2 to fuel with efficiency 30%. Should we use both of them? No, we use 30%. The 5% should be eliminated. But that's a different discussion. But for CO2 utilization to chemicals, that's a different story. I think this is very useful technology for business, because when we use up other carbon resources, converting CO2 to chemical is the only way. But if we want to convert CO2 to chemicals that we use now, not to mention that we have enough energy or mature technology, assume we do, the maximum capacity of utilization annually is around 300 million tons. This is huge, but this is not even 1% we emit. This is why I say CO2 utilization is important, but it has an insignificant impact on climate change. And so what we really want to make a scalable impact on climate change and energy is to use CO2 as an energy carrier, and that is CO2 to fuel. Then we can discuss what type of fuel should we make. And I think the fuel need to be able to be utilized directly using fuel cell or other electrochemical way, because that is more efficient, 60% theoretically, 40 to 60%. If we make a fuel that can only be used in combustion engine, we all know the internal combustion engine efficiency converting fuel energy, chemical energy back into mechanical energy efficiency is around 20%. That would not be the best way to utilize the green energy that we have spent a lot of effort to acquire.
Okay.
Of course, I'm not saying that is not useful. That can still be useful in some niche application where fuel cells, batteries are very difficult.
Okay. To save the time,
find
we
application,
have to-
yes.
although I have lots of disagreement, but I think that will go to somewhere else. We go to Neelima ji, and then we should open up to the audience.
Audience.
Right? Should take question from audience. So Neelima ji,
Okay.
short the comments. and
Yeah.
we-
So very quickly, sir, I want to say something to what he
Yes,
was
yes,
saying,
yeah.
but I also have one line for 2 lines for Dr. Kakodkar sir were talking about translational and R&D, sir. I just wanted to, you are very correct, sir. Mechanisms are right now lacking as far as translational R&D is concerned, but with thoughtful exercises, I can only talk about what DST has done. Specifically, sir, in this area, CCUS, sector-specific kind of calls came out, designed in such a way that we can handhold those technologies which are already lab-proven. And this happened only 23, 24 only. Lab-proven technology, take them to the industry and also ask industry to participate, not just technically, also financially. The cash is coming from the industry as well. And together established these very small levels, sir, 1 to 2 TPD or 5 ton per day kind of facilities in the relevant industry. We have done it for cement. We have done it for coal gasification facilities. Thermax Bhale has already done it for us. Now we are evaluating the cement proposals also. So that was just a small effort I wanted to outline to you, sir, from DST's end. Now coming to the CCUS debate, that's a very, very never-ending kind of a thing. And I have time paucity, so I won't go into it, but I'll just say one thing. CDR, I mean, carbon dioxide removal technologies, they don't bring the U part into it. They just capture either directly from air and take it to the storage subsurface. I was recently in a UN delegation in Norway, visiting all the, capture plants, very huge cement capture plants, and the Northern Lights Center, which is storing the carbon dioxide into the saline aquifers in the North Sea. I asked them one question, that I don't see the U part in your whole chain. They said, we don't need to. We have the vicinity we have North Sea vicinity storage sites available to us. We'll just capture and store, and that is much more affordable to us than to bring the utilization step into it. I'm sorry, because that will bring the hydrogenation, and hydrogenation will bring the electrolyzers, and that will take the cost up. But then I asked them, then how do you think this green cement, which you are going to sell at one point, because this is a cement plant I'm talking to, how will that become feasible economically? They said, I said, because the U part adds that value to it. You will have CO2 being converted into a value added product. So you are actually omitting that step. You're omitting that value added step from your whole value chain. They said, we agree with you. That's an important point you're bringing. But in our case, we are going to more depend on carbon trading, carbon credits to bring that value. So,
Okay.
that's all. Yeah.
Add a quick point.
Andy?
The reason that why they can do that is because they have surplus of energy that they don't know what to use, right? And then I think for India, this is certainly not the case, right? And then so even if countries like Norway, okay, they can conduct carbon capture 100%.
Yes.
It's insignificant to the world climate situation.
Okay.
And then unfortunately, the reason why they capture CO2 is they want to sell the CO2 carbon credit to other companies. At what price? 1 ton for $1,500.
Okay, good.
And then who is going to pay? Customers and taxpayers,
Yes.
unfortunately.
So, to the audience, I have the questions. If you cannot answer, you put here. The IEA says, which energy system qualifies to take care of 2 degrees Celsius limit? It is 11 grams per kilowatt hour. Solar PV is around 40 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. The CCUS goes to 180 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. And the nuclear is almost 11 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. So why we're still driving solar and wind is a big question for me. The world today is talking about 660 million tons of CO2 production per year. China is targeting 1/3 of that. America, almost 100 million tons. Do they really require so much? And we target very small amount. You have heard the presentation. My question is, why so less? Are we targeting to a developed India or only to manage within ourselves? Third and very important thing, any of the technologies we are talking about here, is it available here? Or we have to buy these technologies from outside and just the end user? A year back, I think 3 of us probably were there in IIT Jodhpur to discuss about green hydrogen. And at the end, probably Professor Sonde asked, if I remember, any of the industries want to invest to create a green hydrogen at Jodhpur? I'm sure not a single industry came forward. So within this backup, please create your questions accordingly. Don't create questions curiosity-based. Create questions which are very, very intriguing. Now it is open to the floor.
Yes, you can raise the hand, the mic will come to you. Sharvi, where are the mics? Yeah, here.
So I've been thinking about these things, but then even though I do research, I cannot directly answer some of the questions you guys are asking, because the thing that I sort of gathered from the discussion from Professor Sonde and Professor Kamat is that you need some kind of life cycle analysis right at the start of the research. And we don't do that. We just do it out of curiosity to solve the problem. But okay, we'll get some papers, but okay, what else? So I feel, I mean, I might be wrong, but what I'm sort of getting out of all this is that we need expertise in life cycle analysis to sort of look at crate to cradle, not, I mean, sorry, gate to cradle kind of emissions to get the holistic picture. So I don't know, like if my thinking is right, maybe like how you said the steam engine thing, if somebody would have thought the whole thing in the planetary level after 200 years, maybe we would have been able to
Can you be a
solve.
bit brief and ask the question so that we get more questions
Yeah.
from others?
Yeah, so that's it about the life cycle analysis.
So
The short answer is yes. We need life cycle analysis.
I don't think I can answer it so quickly like he has done. Many people as a researcher don't understand life cycle analysis, and it is too early to do this. So we need to have one level lower than life cycle analysis, because many times this cost which you put it can become highly questionable cost. So just to say life cycle analysis is fashionable, I wouldn't recommend life cycle analysis. I would say that there is a certain efficiency and the life, the degradation potential. So if you say fuel cell, you tell me whether fuel cell cost will be equal or less than a IC engine or a diesel engine is a question. I will say, I don't know, but tell me from a fuel cell, because I've done a model, can I get a fuel cell which does not degrade more than 2 microvolts per hour? And its efficiency does not fall down by certain percentages. Because I, as an engineer, as a technologist, I know the impact, but to you as a scientist, I will give you one derived parameter, and that's what I'm doing. I conduct a course in IIT Delhi, which is highly popular on this particular thing, which will enable so that you are not muddled with some commercial number, the return on investments and all kinds of total cost of ownerships and IRRs and all that. So that we need to understand that answer cannot be LCA. LCA can be very complicated. Even us sometimes takes it difficult because you need an economist and a financial guy to understand LCA, to be frank with you. So I wouldn't recommend don't go to LCA, but there are means of doing it. And I request, in fact, I had a discussion with Vivek, and he was saying that, no, how do I do this? My job is to do science. I said, you do science, but we'll help you to understand how your science can become more relevant.
Okay, brief. We will take more questions right now. I
Just
guess.
one line. I will just say that you're talking about LCA and TA. I mean, that should come as a second stage of your work. If you are starting a research project or research work, you have to first develop the technology and the knowledge around it, and then you go for LCA.
I'm sorry for this. It has to be done at the stage, otherwise you will not select anything. I can always say that my great.
Okay,
so you need to do it at a very early stage.
There's different of views. So
But let's
not
do a
discuss about one.
proper life cycle analysis.
I think it was
I will
second
take,
question.
yes, please.
Another question,
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take on.
Hello. Yeah, sorry. I think it's right time for me to say something.
Can you keep it close?
Yeah, hello. Yeah. So, sorry if I'm saying anything out of my ignorance or stupidity. The thing is, my doubt is so simple. We are talking about so much energy demand in the future, etc., and now, etc. Where all this energy is going to? No, it's not a thing to laugh. Actually, just before COP29, I like to share some information. There's an organization called Oxfam has released this publication paper, which says that world's richest billionaires, millionaires are emitting carbon footprint, which is equal to 2.6 million years of carbon footprint what poor people, like below 50% in the world, is emitting. So if you ask me where all this energy demand, all these reasons is going is, it's to the people who want to make more business. Okay, so the thing what they're saying, they are investing 40% of the investment.
Can you be again? Sorry, can you be brief and ask the question so that I think that is better way, right?
Yeah, actually, it's a kind of a question.
What is
It's a kind of a question to ourselves and also a suggestion. What
I
I'm
think Dr.
trying to
Sonde,
say
you had a
is-
slide on this, that what percentage goes to industry, what percentage go to domestic.
Yeah, I don't
think
have
one
any
slide.
energy demand in my home. I'll burn only one fans
Ramkumar,
That's
I
it.
understood your question. See, there is something called entropy of the world increases all the time. Okay.
Yes.
There's a God statement. I will not go there. So
Yes.
all the energy that we're using for HDI, life cycle, everything goes to increase the entropy.
Yes, sir.
So the world entropy is growing, universal entropy is growing, but there is a huge work on what is entropy. So it's a little difficult question. You ask, where is this energy going? In a philosophical way or in a actual scientific way?
No, sir. A scientific way, I also all know, but it's also.
Consuming more.
More energy than.
Yeah.
No, that is, I think, let's not get there.
So otherwise there's no
He has
solution
answered
to
that.
this
The
problem.
question is, energy is required for a basic entire engine of our life cycle. Our lifestyle is on. Now, whether lifestyle gives you happiness is not an important thing. Lifestyle gives you satisfaction is not an important thing. But I want a lifestyle. Maybe with much less lifestyle, Bhutan is much happier than many of the global citizens. They may not need that much energy. Now, this is just a discussion which will not be here. We need a
Not
different
me,
forum to
you
discuss that.
said that.
I think we will take
Waste of
another
energy.
question for now, right? Please. You have any other question? Yeah. Can you, Michael, can you give it to him?
Good evening to all. So we are talking about net zero India and we don't see any bioenergy here. So can you all please comment on that? And one more thing, can you comment on this decentralized energy generation so that people can have more effort or more what to say, yeah, participation in the energy generation process like that.
Okay. Maybe Dr. Kakodkar and then Dr. Nayak. It's working.
Well, is it on?
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. No, first about decentralized generation. I think decentralized generation is important. There was this question about, where energy is going. I'll come to that in a moment. But I think for a healthy lifestyle, lifestyle where you're talking about live within your means. And in that context, in fact, I had at one stage ambition of isolating myself in a place where you generate your own energy and your own needs without any external input. And in principle, it is possible. So, but the energy requirements that we're talking about has many more dimensions than the energy that I require or a household requires. Because you run so many services, so many industries. And when you talk about per capita energy, all that gets aggregated. Now, I'm afraid all that energy cannot be generated through decentralized means. For example, solar rooftop is an important component. But if you say that I'll achieve my solar energy generation targets through decentralized mode of generation, impossible. So it is important at the individual level. It is important at, for example, village level, a decentralized grid, microgrid is very important. And it may, in fact, solve the energy problem of that village. But whether it will solve the energy problem of India, the answer is no. So it is important, but not a complete solution from the country as a whole point of view. This is, what was your second question? Biomass. Biomass, I think, is an important question. In fact, the documentation on biomass as to how much biomass is there in our country, at one stage, it reflected very little biomass because it did not account for the surplus agricultural residue. Biomass was essentially municipal solid waste or whatever comes out of, say, sugar factories and things of that kind, But this 2G and 3G biomass is actually a very significant addition, and it could, I don't have the full data, but it could well be something like 15-20% of the total energy requirements. Or for that matter, it could meet the entire sort of domestic or kitchen energy requirements. And I think there is movement towards full utilization of biomass, although I made the point about being technology agnostic, because now coming to where does the energy go, it's a philosophy. At individual level, I would also like to be and question myself as to why do we want all that Western lifestyle, or where do we, people who subscribe to Gandhian philosophy, I am one among them. You can question why you require so much of energy. And I think it's very hard to answer that question in a satisfactory way. But having said that, I think we should also recognize that the human aspiration and human needs are two different things. I'll not go to the level of greed, but at least human aspirations and human needs are two completely different things. And the human needs get generated or augmented because I see my neighbor, and that changes my aspiration. I can assure you, take sample of some 100 young people coming from villages, they will have one kind of aspiration. After their graduation or something, take them to United States and ask them the same question after 6 months. You will find a different answer. Or in a very simple way, a survey was conducted at one of the crossing in Thane. And there are lots of these families who make some petty things and sell to the car, people who travel in the car. And then, of course, there are the children, family, they're all staying. So there's an NGO who conducted questions among them as to what do you aspire for? And a number of those children, they said, I want to have a Mercedes. Okay? So somebody at the level of, living on streets. Now, this child is seeing cars moving around. They discuss which is the best car. Somehow between them, they reach a consensus. Mercedes is the best car. So he says, I want to have Mercedes. So the child aspires for being Mercedes. Now, I would say there is nothing wrong in that. You may preach, no, it is beyond your means, but that's the aspiration. So if you want the world to be conflict-free, you cannot tell that this is good for me and not good for you, right? And it is in that sense, there must be some uniformity in terms of quality of life. And so you require so much of extra energy. And of course, all that goes to increasing entropy, as Dr. Sonde says. But we cannot go to the level of, it is not sustainable. I know several people who spend their life preaching a very modest Spartan way of living and changed completely the other way within a short time thereafter because something happened in their life. So I think but this is more philosophical issue. I think it will be very hard to dive deep into this in this energy debate.
Just I want to answer, sir. About the biomass, little on a lighter vein, 30 seconds. See, what has happened in this country is biomass is used now as a boiler combustion. Okay, NTPC is feeling that it's net zero comes from boiler. So he said 200 million tons he has got biomass to produce so much power. Same biomass is again claimed by SAF people, the sustainable aviation fuel for the air transport, that we have got 200 million tons of this thing so that it can meet 10% of the buy. Same biomass is claimed by the hydrogen people and the fuel people that will use that biomass for the purpose of biocrude and all that. Same biomass goes to CBG. So there is a problem that there's a limited biomass. It's a good biomass, but every claimant is claiming that he has got 200 million tons, adding up to 1,000 million tons. We don't have it. And that is something which is really worrying me, because what is happening today is essentially biomass is getting combusted, which is very criminal. But this is one of our things, because a lot of people have come and told that the best way to reduce carbon footprint from our thermal power plants is to co-fire biomass, which is creating a problem, huge problem of fouling and other things. But a Princeton team came and recommended that India should go, only way is use all the biomass and burn it in the combustion. And NTPC can always source biomass at 2 rupees to 10 rupees. And today, where is the biomass for ethanol? Where is the biomass for SAF? Where is the biomass for hydrogen? Where is the biomass for CBG? There is a problem there.
Yeah.
So just to, you would have noticed in my lecture, I did mention that, you know, for cooking energy, for maintaining good air quality and Indian style cooking, you can't do everything with electricity or induction ovens. You will require flame, fire, that kind of temperature. And CBG is the only alternative left if you want zero carbon emission kind of fuel for cooking. And I actually champion that eventually, going forward, reserve entire biomass for cooking.
Good. Next one.
Please.
Gadi. No. Can you switch on?
Okay. So actually, this is my first visit to India. I'm very excited to be here. But I do go a lot to China in the last 15 years. I've been there many, many, many times. And in 1995, the GDP per person of China was exactly the same as that in India. But today, it is not. And my question to the panel, with the exception of Professor Huang, is why? What is the difference? Why has India failed where China has succeeded? You guys have been here, so you know the answer, but I don't.
It's outside the scope of this panel.
Let's discuss this in a different section.
Okay, Prashant has the last comment and then.
No, I want to call on Dr. Pradeep, because this conference is also on environment. And I want to have his opinion on the impact of all these energies on the environment. Can you just say in 2 minutes or 5 minutes? That is very important. What you see is smog and all these things is part of the same problem.
What can I tell you? Vivek wanted the whole thing to be in 30 seconds. You are now saying 2 minutes. And therefore, I don't want to really speak about very many things. Only thing that has come out from this discussion, to me, the take-home message is that carbon dioxide has no passport. And if at all we have to address this carbon dioxide, having no passport, to address with science, which has no passport. And that science, beginnings of that science, we have to go back to nature itself. Earlier, there was this question of bio. We haven't understood bio yet. We know how to fix sunlight. The process involves production of hydrogen. But we haven't understood how to produce hydrogen. I lived last few months ago with a European professor. I felt that it was impossible to live in Europe without electricity. I learned that it is possible today with new technologies to heat homes with renewables. I lived with him, cooked with him, stayed with him for 3 days. We haven't utilized our capacity enough. As Prashant says, see, I'm from a village. I walked 4 kilometers one way to my school. The school is still there, but no child is walking. We have to go back. We have to understand these processes. We have to understand biology better. We have to use what is in front of us efficiently with the kind of technologies that we know how to harvest. Anything, in the past few years, our consumption has increased so tremendously. I celebrate chemistry, but to me, I feel that we come to the belief that ammonia is possible only by Haber Bosch. But is it not possible? I mean, I see there's so many people working on new things. Is it not possible to look for new ammonia? I feel that this is very much possible. I know that Vivek is getting restless. I do realize that the only way to address this problem is to have barrierless, passportless hybridization of science.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Nice. So now I request Dr. Nayak to make a concluding remarks, and then we can.
Yeah, very quickly, let me conclude with a philosophical talk. Like everybody, I found most of the questions were philosophical rather than to do scientific aspects. 1997, I was in Tokyo Institute of Technology while I was doing PhD. One professor from Kurchasov Institute had given the same talk which we just discussed here. Energy beyond 2100. Very nicely he started. What is the number of creatures in the universe, not humans alone? And how the human energy requirement has globally increased from the inception of industrial era. And how it's going to climb more and more. And the rest of the other creatures' energy requirement is flat. So one of the questions which was put, there is already answered there, whether bio can answer our energy requirement, provided we live in nature without asking for more and more. So that is answered. So we are asking more and more, so bio is limited. That's why the fossil came to produce more energy. And that's why we're talking about fission. And in his calculation, 1997, he had shown fission can only meet the inverse energy requirement, global energy, not inverse, global energy requirement up to 2075. And beyond 2075, fusion has to take over. And 2150 beyond, it is hybrid fission and fusion. You admit or not. So I was today, when I look back the questions and answers, I say that the only answer which Dr. Kakodkar said is the only solution for India, fission up to 2050, 2075. After that, fusion, then hybrid fission and fusion. If India has to be a Vikashit Bharat beyond 2050 with 1.7 billion population. So this is the summary thing I say is the answer. Rest all will be definitely the value addition to that. In 28,000 billion units, 20,000 billion units have to come from nuclear, 8,000 billion units with the full potential of renewables of India. If that is harnessed, we can make India a Vikashit Bharat. At the same time, almost $7 to $8 trillion have to be invested if we reach $35 trillion economy. But a big question to all the fundamental scientists who are working here, any of the technology do we have? If not, what this research is going to lead to? This is the big question for Indian scientists. Are we all making papers for a high journal impact factors? Then you will find 99% of our efforts is only to make a high impact journal paper publication. And we feel very proud. That includes my 500 papers also. So the biggest question for all of us, taking India to 2050 with a title, Vikashit Bharat, 28,000 terawatt hour. This have to be accomplished within next 20 years by young people, not by old people like us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You can have another panel on panel.
Yes.
You can have another panel on panel. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So now the next session will be here only at 5:45 p.m. I request all of you to come on time so we can start the session. Yeah.
Shall we announce one more time? Very nice. Very nice. I tried to keep it. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Okay.
No. Someone must only put this here.
You are so how is possible?